You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. With Indeed sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates, so you can reach the people you want faster. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Don't wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/kidsandfamily. Just go to Indeed.com/kidsandfamily right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.
Pet Life Radio. This is Pet Life Radio. Let's talk pets.
Welcome to Animal Rights on Pet Life Radio. I'm super excited about the show because I've got some great professional certified dog trainers coming on, talking about their latest book and the ins and outs of how do you blend a old dog and a new dog into one happy family. Of course, we're talking about professional trainers and authors Callahan and Helen St. Pierre. And we're going to be talking to them about their latest book, Old Dog, New Dog, Supporting Your Aging Best Friend and Welcoming a New One. So super exciting, great information to have, especially for those of us that have gone through, unfortunately, animals in our lives that have made their transition or are about to make their transition, but yet a new puppy comes along, which is a whole new ballgame. So we're going to pick the brains a little bit about all that, find out about the book, and we'll sort of take it from there. So everybody hang tight. We'll come back right after this commercial break. You're listening to Animal Rights on Pet Life Radio.
Take a bite out of your competition. Advertise your business with an ad in Pet Life Radio podcasts and radio shows. There is no other pet-related media that is as large and reaches more pet parents and pet lovers than Pet Life Radio. With over 7 million monthly listeners, Pet Life Radio podcasts are available on all major podcast platforms, and our live radio stream goes out to over 250 million subscribers on iHeartRadio, Odyssey, TuneIn, and other streaming apps. For more information on how you can advertise on the #1 pet podcast and radio network, visit PetLifeRadio.com/advertise today.
Let's Talk Pets on PetLifeRadio.com.
Welcome back to Animal Rights on Pet Life Radio. Joining me now is certified professional dog trainers and family dog mediators, of course, authors of the latest book, Old Dog, New Dog, Supporting Your Aging Best Friend and Welcoming a New One. Welcome to the show, Callahan and Helen St. Pierre.
Thank you. We're delighted to be here.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm really excited to chat today.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the book and I love the format of the book because there is, as I read through everything, I've experienced this myself and trying to make these decisions on what to do when an animal is a dog of ours or an animal in our life is getting ready to make their transition. They're getting a little bit older. So when you get the new one, how do you go about doing that? And I also reflect back to those days where I let that gap go for quite a while and then decided, hey, let's get a puppy. And then realized, oh my God. What was I thinking? So so tell us a little bit about the book in general and the concept, how you came about putting it together.
So Helen and I were both presenting at a dog conference. Believe it or not, there are things called dog conferences. I did not know that till 5 years ago. And I was presenting on puppies. She was presenting on oldies. And our talks melded so beautifully together. The beginning of life, the end of life, it requires a lot of the same stuff from the humans and a lot of the same kind of attention. And we got together at the coffee break at that conference. We were like, wait, hang on. We have to do a book together because we both often get that question that you were just talking about, which is your beloved old dog is starting to age and it makes you think, wait, shoot, is this the right time for a puppy? Because you want to soften that loss for your household and you love the idea of your sweet old friend teaching the youngster and it makes it sort of feel like it's a little bit less of a loss. So your impulse is to do that, but is it the right thing? Because we have both the advice that we both give. So people ask us this question all the time. They ask me because I'm a puppy person, her because she's an old dog person, although we both do all of it. And our answer is identical, which is it depends, which is completely unhelpful to whoever asked us that question. So we decided we wanted to have a resource, the kind of thing that we would have loved to place in the hands of those people asking that question, because it's complicated. Dogs are individuals. Humans are individuals. Everybody's setup is different. It really depends a heck of a lot on how is your old dog doing, what shape are they in, what kind of bandwidth do you have in your household to manage this situation if the puppy turns out to be way more than you thought, or if your old friend starts to decline a little bit more than you anticipated. So the book talks about managing this situation however it goes. So we hope it goes beautifully for you. Sometimes it's absolutely phenomenal, but we want to help set you up for the challenges that are going to arise when you do try to manage both ends of the spectrum at the same time.
Yeah, the challenge of it, I find not only trying to manage it as far as like the dogs are concerned, because as you mentioned, they have their own unique personalities. Just because you have two of the same breed, we'll say, yeah, there'll be some characteristics that may be breed driven, but for the most part, everything's their own unique personality. And then how do you make that tough decision? Because if you have a dog that is elderly, is going into the twilight of their years and maybe they've got some health problems and things of this sort, that's a full-time job, full-time money commitment, full-time everything commitment. And then you bring a puppy into play. And you have all that commitment too. That's a financial commitment and a time commitment. And trying to make that balance on, okay, what is the best thing to do? So how do you really, I know it's each individual situation, each individual person has to decide, and family has to decide, but what are some of those key factors to help them make that decision on, okay, is this the right opportunity for our family?
There's a huge benefit for the human side versus the dog side per se when we're making those decisions. And I think that we often in our society, we don't talk a lot about death. We don't talk about grief or deal with grief until after the fact. And something that's really beautiful about planning a puppy or getting a puppy is you kind of are in that way accepting some anticipatory grief. You're recognizing that you're coming into a phase where your life without your current senior dog is getting closer than it has been before. And you're thinking about the next step. And so I think that for many people, thinking about getting another dog or getting another puppy isn't necessarily, when we know this, for the senior dog, but for them. And so there is no necessarily right or wrong answer. You just have to say that, look, if you have a very, very old dog that is blind or deaf and can't walk well and is very small, and you've decided to help your heart with the loss of that dog in a few months or however long, get yourself a Labrador puppy. It's not that it won't work, but it's going to look maybe different than if you have a more spry senior dog and you get a different type of dog that matches the size, if that makes sense. So there's no definitely this is the right thing to do, or definitely this is completely wrong. It's just understanding all those variables and looking at it from the human perspective.
I mean, I've got a good friend of mine. She's a Goldie lover. So all of her pups are Goldies. And through the years, her sort of way to move forward with the healing and the prepping and things of this sort is basically when her oldest gets a little bit to that point where we think there's going to be a transition made somewhere in the near future, she'll get a new puppy. Part of it, when I've asked her, it's been, part of it's the learning process. The older one can teach the younger one. Though I've seen through the years, the older one sometimes says, "Get away! You're too much energy. Leave me alone."
Absolutely,
I've earned my golden stripes here,
Absolutely.
so leave me alone. But on the other hand, I agree that when the one makes the transition, it's always going to be hard. You're always going to think about them. They're always going to be part of your heart connection. But the puppy, at the very least, keeps you super duper busy, so you don't have to think about it as much.
I think that's absolutely right. And a lot of people hesitate and think as they're facing that loss that they don't want to replace their older dog. And one of the things we talk about in the book is that is not what we're doing here. You will never replace that friend. All of these friendships are unique. All these dogs are unique. And so when you're getting a new puppy, it is not like it's going to take the place of that dog. However, you do have love to give, and it feels terrific to have that yes, it's a distraction, and it's the most adorable distraction you can possibly have. And as long as you kind of get your head in the space that you understand this is not the same dog. And sometimes the new puppy does bring on a fresh kind of last wave of grief. If you get the puppy after you've lost your older dog, sometimes it does welcoming a little bit more grief where you kind of finally process, oh, this is not the same dog. This is, I really have lost him. However, we also believe that these oldies, they hang around. They hang around in the ether. And sometimes having a young puppy kind of bring that back to you. You're like, wait, hang on a second. You just get this sense. Anyway, so I think it's a beautiful way to move forward. And as long as your expectations are, this is a fresh, new, different, unique soul in front of me, and we're going to move on in a different way, and it will bring you new lessons and new joys. It won't be the same. It'll be different, but it certainly helps grief most of the time, if you ask me.
Yeah, nothing's cuter than a puppy. So we'll just put it that way right there. So going back to the question on sort of how do you make those decisions? What are some of the things as an individual or as a family you should sit down and sort of consider before doing this? Because you do have phases. You can bring them on, a year before and sort of learn the ropes and get used to having, if you only have one dog, we'll say, and now all of a sudden you have two. How do you manage that? Others will choose to wait till, the grieving process is a little bit less tender, and maybe days, weeks, months down the road, they'll get the puppy to sort of move forward on that. What are some of those questions, some of those things you should be asking yourself or the family should be asking themselves on when is that timing just right?
I think bandwidth, how much bandwidth they have in terms of energy or time for both. It will very much depend on the disease or the sickness level of the senior dog. Are they dealing with incontinence already with the senior dog? Because if they're already cleaning up pee and poop for one dog and now we have a puppy that's also having accidents, is that going to be too much, right? Or what happens if the senior dog really doesn't like the puppy at first and it takes some time? Are they okay living in a gated community for a little while and having gates back up and going back to like square one for a bit, and sort of sitting down and saying, are we okay with this? And, hoping for the best, but let's just plan for the worst. Here's the worst stuff that could happen. And are we all okay with that and that level of work? Because as you said, Tim, earlier, it's work. Caring for a senior dog is a lot of work. Raising a puppy is a lot of work. It's not that there isn't joy in that. Obviously there is. Otherwise I wouldn't have a senior hospice dog sanctuary. Kathy wouldn't raise puppies so much. But you have to really be willing to be in the trenches of that for a little bit. And everyone in the family should be okay with that, I think.
You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. With Indeed sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates, so you can reach the people you want faster. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Don't wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/kidsandfamily. Just go to Indeed.com/kidsandfamily right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.
Yeah, I think that's good way to take a look at it and having those conversations and making those decisions. They're tough ones, but they can be exciting ones as well. And having a senior, my boy Kramer, he passed away in January at the age of 12. He's going to be 13. He had prostate cancer.
Okay.
And so we went through months of taking care of him. Those final weeks, it was up every hour upon the hour to let him out. And so he could go potty, take his little man pants off, we'll call them, and let him have some freedom to feel good about himself. And but I was literally up every hour on the hour to let him out. Now we have another Schnauzer who is 13, going to be 13 at the end of the month, and she's doing fantastic. Challenge there is there's no way I could introduce a new puppy into this household because her energy level is at max. And the things we weren't able to do with our boy Kramer at these latter times of his life, we're now able to do with Dusty, because Dusty is the boss of the house and she is full of energy. And she's like, okay, now we can go do things that we weren't able to do. We can't,
Yes.
It's demanding park time in addition to our big fenced backyard time, demanding certain things to happen, or she's not settled because these are things that we weren't able to do, or we used to do before Aunt Kramer, was unable to do them. So for our family, trying to make those decisions, it's a tough one because we've always had dogs, we've always had animals in our life, but we find great joy in taking care of just one right now, who's very demanding, compared to trying to go out and get another puppy and go through that again.
That's just great, because it sounds like you all feel exactly the same way about this, and this is the right route for you. That's so great. Another family might absolutely go the other direction with that. And the thing is, it is something you need to talk about and really think, just as you say, you're getting the man pants off in the middle of the night with the old dog. When that can happen, if you are also dealing with a puppy who needs needs to wake up in the middle of the night and go outside, that's just a heck of a lot. So you just want to be aware what these stages are going to look like, how they can unroll, and talk about them, and be prepared to step up. Ideally, it'll work great. Ideally, when you introduce this, if you decide to have the two of them, they will curl up in the bed together. Nobody, the old dog has more energy. The puppy's thrilled to have a leader. That absolutely does happen. And we just want everybody to be prepared for the other end, when it might make a lot more sense for you to, for example, do what you're doing and really focus on these years with your dog.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that one of the things I've seen over the years with clients and people I know and people that work with rescue and stuff is when you bring a new one, let alone a puppy, introduce a new one to your family, the expectation of them knowing how to pick up on everything right away and know exactly what to do, doesn't always happen. They don't know. They're in a new place. They don't know the rules of the house. They don't know, even if they're in a gated community. I love that, Helen. I will regress back. We have the metal gates in every room of our house that you have the push plate and it pops open. Those work so fantastic that even for the short period of time when we didn't have a dog, we kept them. They're in place now. They're in every room. Our dogs never go into those rooms to cause any mischief or anything, but they're wonderful to have. So we definitely live in a gated.
And they make them look so nice now. I mean, that's the thing when I have these conversations with people, because a lot of people have, especially if they've got an older dog that's like 15 or 16 and they're going to get a puppy, and I talk about gates, they have the idea of these, remember the older compression gates were the only ones, or those white ones that clanked around. And I'm like, no. Nowadays, you can go to any store and you will find like beautiful gates that match your decor, that are very aesthetically pleasing, that once they're in, you don't really care that they stay there. So
right.
The options have changed. And then those people that had dogs 15 years ago that now are getting a puppy are like, oh my God, they didn't have this stuff even back then. I'm like, exactly. So it's a lot prettier. It could look a lot prettier than it used to.
Yeah,
absolutely right. And it is our number one tip in the book when you introduce a puppy into a house with another dog, is that separation. You need to have those gates, because the big thing is you need to protect the other dog from puppy energy. Puppies are the cutest thing on the planet. They are also unbelievably rude. They don't know anything. They don't have any manners. They haven't learned this stuff. So when they come in, they are going to be jumping up and biting and wrestling, and they want to do it 24/7. And they want to do it with the dog. No matter how cute and fun you try to be as a human, that puppy's going to keep choosing the dog. And if you kind of decide to let that go, you're going to be hurting the potential relationship between the two of them. So you really want to make sure that the older dog can always choose whether he wants to interact with the puppy, and he may choose never. But we hope that he chooses it kind of a lot, and then you can manage it when you can supervise when they're together and helping them to create that nice relationship. But if you count on your older dog to be the babysitter of the puppy, which is a really human, easy thing to do because we're all really busy, and sometimes that older dog will just keep the puppy busy for a while. But if you do that, you are risking taxing your old dog with too much of a job there. And it's a job they didn't ask for. They didn't ask for the puppy. We asked for the puppy. So you just want to, for a little while, it's going to be a heck of a lot of management that way to make sure that your older dog can always choose whether to interact.
Nice. And I love it. That's the number one tip. So that works out real well. And the book's full of all kinds of insight and tips because obviously you guys lived it and are continuing to live it every single day. And I think those little tidbits and tips and things to look for are the important thing. And this, the book Old Dog, New Dog is definitely one that you want to keep handy, earmark, bend down those pages if you need to. Buy a second copy. That would be good. We like that. So all kinds of great information there. Well, we're going to come back right after this commercial break, and we'll talk a little bit more to Kathy Callahan and Helen St. Pierre about the book Old Dog, New Dog. Also want to talk to them a little bit about writing and joining together to write such a fabulous book. So everybody hang tight. We'll come back right after this commercial break. You're listening to Animal Rights on Pet Life Radio.
Begging to hear more of your favorite show? Full episodes of all our shows are available on demand. Go to PetLifeRadio.com to fetch our entire lineup of Possum Pet podcasts. Also, dig us up in iHeartRadio and iTunes. Let's talk pets. Live and on demand only from Pet Life Radio.
Let's talk pets
Let's talk pets
on Pet Life Radio.
Pet Life Radio.
PetLifeRadio.com.
Welcome back to Animal Rights on Pet Life Radio. Continue our conversation with certified professional dog trainers and authors, Kathy Callahan and Helen St. Pierre, in their new book, Old Dog, New Dog, supporting your aging best friend and welcoming a new one. So both of you are professionals and you've been around this and you've been down the road a time or two, even though you're very, very young, we'll put it that way. When putting the book together, were there things that are like, wow, I forgot that, or wow, I didn't know that, or things that is like, wow, I used to talk about that all the time and now I don't, and so I need to go back in my toolbox and bring those things out?
So, I mean, we both do live this stuff all the time. And so this book just kind of fell out of our brains together. So it did not feel like that. When I watched her presentation, I had heard of Helen before. I knew of her work. And then I met her at this conference, watched her presentation, and I loved every word that came out of her mouth because it felt everything felt so true to me. We look at things the same way. And so when we did just even begin talking about the book, it was just like, yep. Like honest to God, it just kind of came out because we counsel people about this all the time. And we give the same advice to people. I mean, she has much more knowledge on old dogs than I do. And so I wish I could just transport her into my client conversations with old dogs because I don't have the depth of information on that. But now I have this book to hand people. So anyway, that's my perspective. How about you, Helen?
Yeah, and I said this a couple of days ago for me with my work at the hospice, because I have a hospice sanctuary. So I'm constantly taking in senior dogs and assessing quality of life and helping them pass. And we do it out of our home. So it's a huge passion project for us. But for me, the most important thing was the alignment that Kathy had with me on assessing quality of life and knowing when to make the right call and standing by, humane euthanasia and knowing when to do that for our senior dogs. And she was right in line with me and my, the way that I approach end of life care for animals and especially dogs. So that was huge for me because this information, the work that I do on a daily basis is very, very personal. It's difficult work. So writing a book with someone that might argue that the points that I was trying to eloquently and effectively put out to the public in terms of how to assess quality of life with your senior dog and how to really start having those conversations about end of life. It was really important that Kathy or at the time, anybody wanted the same things I did. And Kathy and I just aligned immediately on that. And that was everything to me. It made it very easy for me to write because I knew that what I was writing wasn't going to be overly analyzed or taken too sensitively, if that makes sense. It made it very easy for us to sort of piece this together very, very quickly. And it was fun. It was so fun.
We had such a great time. But we both do feel so strongly that people need to get more comfortable with death. And that there's a lot of folks it's a beautiful thing that we can ease our animals' suffering. And a lot of folks are not comfortable with that. And as a result, they and their animals end up suffering quite a bit at the end. And that doesn't really need to happen. And so one of our fondest hopes for this book is that it helps people to become a little bit more comfortable with the process of assessing quality of life and embracing the idea of euthanasia. Because that whole, gosh, I don't know, I don't feel comfortable with that, I just want a natural death, that can result in a heck of a lot of suffering. And we see it because we see those decisions, and it's just a shame. And what we also see is when people do finally take the step to go ahead, and often they'll do, lap of love in their own home, and they find out what a peaceful process it is, and there's no suffering, and it's kind of beautiful, and you have a chance to gather the family and plan and talk about it, and then do a little ceremony.
You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. With Indeed sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates, so you can reach the people you want faster. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Don't wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/kidsandfamily. Just go to Indeed.com/kidsandfamily right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.
If you want, and once they've done that, they realize, oh, this really is, they begin to have regret for maybe pets they haven't done that for. So we're hoping to ease that, as we're hoping that people will pick up this book, even if they're just have a senior dog right now and aren't quite thinking puppy. This book will help them to make their seniors dogs last twilight better with simple tips, even simple stuff like, have more rugs on the floor. They're slipping on your floor, little stuff like that, all the way to how do you decide if this is the day. Anyway, so yeah, we share that philosophy very strongly, and we're hoping that this book can help people become a little more comfortable with that.
And I think that's the big thing about it, as you mentioned early on, talking about it. We don't talk about it. We don't talk about it from a human standpoint often, let alone with our animals. And animals, we have such a short window, and oftentimes those decisions have to be made. It seems like we have this huge window to make those decisions, but we don't. Their lifespan is short. Too short, way too short. And then when they do become older, or when they have dis-ease within their body, then we have to make those decisions. And we are notorious as humans to beat ourselves up over everything. But it's part of that process. It's part of that grieving process, to heal at your own time, but even make those decisions ahead of time. There's no easy answer. I'm sure you've experienced it. I know I have, where we've had in-home transitions. We've had transitions at the vet's office. We've had them transition in our arms. There's no right or wrong answer to it, and none of it's easy. But I think the tips that you put in the book gives a little bit more humanity to it. It gives the people the feeling that they can, make those decisions and how to go about doing that, and makes it a little bit easier on the front end, and hopefully makes it easier on the grieving process in the back end. So then the book itself, we write it, so it's just so easy. Was it more of Helen, you write your stuff, Kathy, I'll write mine. We'll put it in the middle, and voila, it's done. It took about a week or two to get it done, and there it is.
Well, it wasn't that quick.
It wasn't, yeah. Yes. I mean, Kathy and I sort of outlined it and said, okay, I'll write this bit, you write this bit. We can sort of put this piece together, then I'll do this bit, and then we'll just sort of formulate it like that. And so what we did was, it was a process of, we would have our own deadlines where she would send me what she had written and I would send her what I had written. We would be like, oh, okay, do you like this? Should I add something? And it was very, very easy because we've our techniques and our understanding and our writing styles were very, very similar. So there wasn't a whole lot. There was a very, very little friction in anything. It was just sort of like, what if we talk about this where we didn't mention that? Should we add that in? Easy, but it certainly wasn't a week. I think it was like 6 months?
I think it was about, so I think we started writing in January.
February.
And I think the manuscript was due at the end of July. So we were basically just sending each other chapters, marking little comments in Google Docs or whatever, and then pulling it all together. And we have the same kind of vibe and voice. And so we're comfortable with each other's style of writing. And we do recommend the same stuff all the time, And so it was very easy to pull it together. Now I want to write all my books with Helen, because now when I think about it, my other books weren't as fun. It's more fun to have Helen. So.
Yeah, it's more fun to have somebody that you can be like, is this okay? Is that all right?
Yes.
Am I going too far here? Where do I draw this line? And, Kathy was wonderful because we had started the process and my mother passed in April of last year. And Kathy had written to me and said, maybe we should stop. Like everything's due in July. And I was like, no, I have to do this for her. Like I have to do this for Mom. So I rented this little Airbnb on the beach and I went and I just sat and wrote and wrote and wrote. But, having somebody that was willing to say, we don't have to do this right now if you don't want to do this. My thing is, if you tell me not to do something or I shouldn't do something, I'm 100% going to do it and do it 10 times over. So Kathy was the perfect person to do that with, because if she had been like, Helen, get to it, you're not allowed to grieve, I would have been like, I'm not doing it anymore. So it worked out perfectly.
I love it. I talk a lot about animals are great at deflecting negative energy. So I use that terminology quite a bit. That's why you see a dog, if you get aggravated at the dog, they'll walk away for a moment and then they come back like everything's fine. But if you keep bombarding them with that negative energy, then they absorb it and they get dis-ease within themselves and within their bodies. So that's why I tell people, get rid of negative energy words. One of the biggest ones is don't. And it sounds like, Helen, you spend a lot of time with dogs because anybody tells you don't, you're going to ignore that. So that's good.
I will do the complete opposite. I
love it. I love it. Well, hopefully your husband gets some tips out of that. I don't know.
No, it's been 9 years and he still is like, I don't get it. I'm like, fine.
Yes, dear. That's what I've learned after all these years. Yes, dear. My fault. Yes, dear. That's all I needed to know.
There you go. Good job. Good job.
Good job. Pat on the head.
The thing is, though, that is so true that especially I just feel with puppies, that no, I never say no to a puppy because they are just learning. It is so easy to fill their world with yes. It's up to us to set up the environment so that their world is filled with yeses and we don't feel that constant need to say no. But most people don't do it that way. And that's why puppyhood feels so stressful, because wherever you turn around, they're doing a no. They're jumping on someone, they're chewing the furniture, they're peeing on the rug, because you have given you have made those choices the
accessible
obvious ones for them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
The negative energy words like no, not, stop, don't, quit, getting aggravated, these things, that's throwing negative energy out there, and animals are great at deflecting that. We're terrible at it. As humans, we absorb that, and that's why it's part of our vocabulary. I always tease when I'm doing speaking, you mentioned conferences, speaking at a conference or doing something through the media, I'll tell them that, I'll ask everybody, would you like to have the biggest retirement fund ever? And they're like, I thought this was a dog talk. What are we talking about here? And I always tell them, put a mason jar or a bowl jar, since I went to Ball State, bowl jar in the middle of your table. Every time you use a word that is a negative energy word, put $1 in the bowl jar. Because we're programmed as humans to say no, not, stop, don't, quit. We're bombarded with negative energy and we project it out there. And our animals, like I said, they're great at not absorbing that. They deflect that off. And so if we use those positive energy words and positive training and positive reinforcement, then they respond accordingly. And it's always in a positive manner. So I think it's very true. And as you mentioned, Kathy, with puppies in particular, you start early, start that framework early, fill them with positive energy, let them know what you need from them. And all of a sudden, you're going to have many, many years of fun with your pup until they become an older senior. And then you'll have even more fun with them because they'll have already absorbed all that positive energy. So anyway, tell us a little bit about what's going on. How can people find out more about the both of you, find out more about the work that you do, and most particular and most important is where to pick up a copy of Old Dog, New Dog, supporting your aging best friend and welcoming a new one.
I am so glad you said the subtitle because I can never remember that. I can just remember the Old Dog, New Dog part. So you guys can search for Old Dog, New Dog wherever you buy your books. If your local bookstore doesn't have it actually on the shelf, of course, you can order it through them and you can get it all through the big online places. You can also reach us on our websites. I'm at puppypicks.com as me. And I have two other books. I have a puppy guide called Welcoming Your Puppy from Planet Dog. And I have my first book was on all the rescues. We rescue puppies. We've had 250 come through this house. So I'd like to bring in the mamas and their babies. So give them a safe place to land. So I have a book on that too. So you can find all that stuff just on my website, puppypicks.com. I'm also on Facebook, Kathy Gord Callahan, and I post a lot of puppy stuff. So it's kind of a fun place to go hang out. And I'm on Instagram at puppypicks.
And there's two ways to find me. If you want to learn more about the work that I do with senior and hospice dogs and animals, it's Old Dogs Go to Helen. You can see Old Dogs Go to Helen on Facebook and at the website. On Old Dogs Go to Helen, you'll see our current residents. We have a memorial, all of our farm hospice animals that we have, cats, pigs, donkeys, horses, you name it, all the senior animals that we get to us, as well as my courses on teaching quality of life, quality of death, how to make those decisions. It's for the public and also for professionals. And then for the book, if you're interested, you can look at No Monkey Business Dog Training. There's a link there in my website of where you can go to purchase the book from local places nearby. But like Kathy said, you can get it pretty much at any place that you buy your books. But on No Monkey Business Dog Training, you'll see more links for the book and all of that fun stuff there as well. And like Old Dogs Go to Helen, because then you'll see all of the stinky, bald, toothless, shuffling dogs coming in and out. I just had a pair of senior Chihuahuas dropped off with me, surrendered yesterday, and they are just the teeniest little spicy chalupas. They are so freaking cute, but they're shuffling in and then they shuffle back out.
Nice.
You'll see all of them on there.
I love it. Well, we'll definitely post all that. Everybody check that out. And of course, pick up a copy of the book, Old Dog, New Dog, supporting your aging best friend and welcoming a new one. Kathy Callahan, Helen St. Pierre, thanks for joining the show. Congratulations on a fantastic book. It's definitely one of those that everybody needs to pick up and keep on their shelf. And don't share it with anybody. Go buy somebody else's, buy another one this year. That's how you go about doing that. But congratulations.
So
yeah, welcome. And thanks so much for coming on the show. I do appreciate it.
Thanks, Tim.
All right. Well, we're coming to the end of the show today. I want to thank everyone for listening to Animal Rights on Pet Life Radio. I want to thank the producers and sponsors for making this show possible. While you're there, you can go visit PetLifeRadio.com and check out all the other wonderful episodes and all the other wonderful shows. It's a cornucopia of barking, purring, and cockadoodle fun. That's at PetLifeRadio.com. And you can also drop us a line and we'll answer all your questions, entertain your comments, and bring on the people you want to hear from most. So until next time, write a great story about the animals in your life, and who knows, you may be the next guest on Animal Rights on Pet Life Radio. Have a great day.
Let's Talk Pets, every week on demand, only on PetLifeRadio.com.
You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. With Indeed sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates, so you can reach the people you want faster. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Don't wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/kidsandfamily. Just go to Indeed.com/kidsandfamily right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.